working on is, as I start in late January, early February every year, we are engaged in a national search for the Business Planning and Entrepreneurship course in the MBA program at Boston College. My goal is to find 20 outstanding ideas that have come from outside of the environs of Fulton Hall, which is the name of our building on campus. Certainly we very much encourage our students to pursue their own ideas, but my goal is to be able to present about 25 or 30 of these, including the students' ideas, in September, and really give our full-time class of 100 MBA students the opportunity to work on a project that they can customize for themselves. Some of them are interested in for-profit, some not-for-profit, others want to do stuff on products or domestic to the United States, international, etc.
Well, it's pretty busy. And you know, you had some thoughts about the economy too you wanted to share with us.
Well, what I find that's interesting about this process of finding companies is that when I start interviewing people on the phone, in about 2 seconds, and I'm somewhat exaggerating but somewhat not, you get a feeling for if they understand what we're trying to do. And if they understand it, they would be more than happy to participate in the program, and it's almost as if you're finishing each other's sentences. On the other hand, if they don't get it, it's absolutely as painful as anything, and usually those calls last 5 minutes. It's very similar, and this is a bit of a stretch, in terms of what's going on economically, is that if you look at statistics only, then you might think the United States economy is doing great, or what's happening in Japan is doing great. But if you go 1 or 2 levels deeper, you realize that the statistics and what's capturing headlines is not necessarily indicative of what's happening in reality on a day-to-day basis.
Wow.
So as an example, China had an interesting 2012. They are embarking on a pretty fascinating 2013. The new president is looking to root out corruption, is looking to get the country back on track economically, and is really taking a whole new approach to economic infrastructure in China, and this is with a country that's had a history of 5,000 years, etc. Contrast that with a much smaller country in South Korea, which is now going to be experimenting with putting satellites into space. They have their first female president. They have, unfortunately, increasing tensions on the Korean Peninsula with North Korea. It really is, any of these countries are really not obvious on the face of it. I mean, consider the United States. The Dow is doing great, but according to recent economic reports, the actual GDP numbers shrank from a prior quarter to where they are now. You have this wonderful Dow Jones Industrial Average, but yet consumer confidence hasn't picked up in lockstep with what's going on with Wall Street, etc.
Wow. Well, it seems like there's a lot going on. You also talked to me a little bit about business planning.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned, we're engaged in a national search for that course. The other project that I'm working on is I will be doing my annual trip to Asia in May of 2013. This year's countries are going to be, and cities are going to be Seoul, South Korea, Bangkok, Thailand, Tokyo, Japan, and Beijing, China. I've got 22 graduate students signed up for the course. If things go as planned, we'll be visiting 20 companies in these 4 cities over a 2-week period as well.
Do students have to pay a stipend over and above their tuition to do this?
Yes.
For something like money.
Well, for something like the business plan course, obviously it is something that is covered by their tuition, especially since it's a core course. For the varying programs that I run and my colleagues at Boston College run, they will certainly have to pay 3 credits of tuition, but there's also a lab fee or travel fee over and above that. I wouldn't necessarily say they have to have money as much as they have to have a combination of money and hopefully access to financial aid. Because more often than not, the tuition and or the lab fee might be covered by financial aid depending on each student's respective situation.
Now, do these students really get into substantial projects that they can really work on and help people with?
You know, it really depends on the individual student, and I realize that's a woefully inadequate generic answer, but unfortunately it's true, in the sense that I believe that my job as a teacher, if we talk about the Entrepreneurship and Business Plan course, is really to cast as wide a net as possible for the students. I don't want to legislate or dictate that in the second year of a full-time program, this is the project you have to do. So I leave it for the students to bid. I also give them points that they can allocate so that we can